Hey noble academics, welcome to Metatron's Academy. Today I wanted to make a video about very useful and really natural expressions and sentences that you can use in Italian when you are in Italy. And the inspiration from this video, which was my wife's idea, is because right now we are in Italy, we are traveling, visiting family, and there are a lot of locations where you can show off your Italian, but rather than being textbook Italian, I want to teach you something that only natives would know so that your Italian can sound not only very natural, but also high level, because you're going to say things the way only an Italian would. So without further ado, today we're going to look at these different locations where you will be able to use these sentences. The cafe, il bar, the restaurant, il ristorante, the ice cream shop, la gelateria, the classroom, la classe, the hotel, l'hotel, the home, la casa, the supermarket, il supermercato. Alright, like any good Italian, let's get started with the cafe, which of course we Italians call il bar. First thing I want to say to you, so that we make sure we can still be friends, is do not call it espresso. So don't go into an Italian cafe and ask, scusi, un espresso per favore. No one does that. It's just un caffè. Un caffè per favore. That is because, of course, the espresso is the default in Italy. So no need to say it. However, if you want to have your breakfast the Italian way, it's most likely going to be on the sweet side, and you will be eating this. Now, how do you call this? Oh gosh, get ready. So, down south, usually that's referred to as a cornetto, plural cornetti. But if you go up in the north, depending on the region, depending on the city, well, some people call it a brioche, for whatever reason. Down south, if you order a brioche, you'll get this. To add insult to injury, some people may also refer to it as a croissant. And don't ask me why. What, are you French? Now, you may know that in Italy we usually don't drink cappuccino after a certain time. It's usually a morning drink, something that people drink for breakfast. So normally, kind of depends on the place, but normally after 11 a.m. people don't really order cappuccini. But let's say you really wanted one. It's like midday and you really wanted one. So you go to the bar and you ask your barista, scusi, un cappuccino per favore. Now, some people will still do it. Other people might look at you and say, oh, un cappuccino a quest'ora. So what is a good way in Italian to sort of push a little bit for you to have your cappuccino regardless of the time? Here's how I would say it. Lo so che il cappuccino dopo le 11 di solito non si prende, però ho proprio voglia di un bel cappuccino. Me la fa questa gentilezza? You ask it that way, they'll do it. Guaranteed. Now you're at the restaurant, whether it be lunch or dinner. One of the basic things you know when you start learning Italian in a more natural way is rather than asking posso avere, so can I have, it's kind of more natural. It's not wrong, but it's kind of more natural to just say ma oggi prendo la carne, oggi prendo gli spaghetti al pomodoro. So you can prendere, to take. Oh gosh, you better get acquainted with that verb because we use it all the time. But let's say you find tagliatelle al ragù. That's what you want. Because you really are into the mood of that meat sauce, but you don't really want tagliatelle. You'd rather have spaghetti. How do you ask to swap or change the type of pasta but maintain the same sauce? Allora, io prendo le tagliatelle al ragù, ma volevo sapere, è possibile fare gli spaghetti al ragù invece delle tagliatelle? Se non è un problema. Note also that oftentimes we Italians, so when we begin a question, we tend to start with ma, which means but. I know it sounds kind of weird in English to say like, but do you like this place? But do you want to go to McDonald's? But we do that. Okay, now you are in your classroom because perhaps you're not just living in Italy, maybe you're not just visiting, but you're actually studying Italian and therefore you're attending a class. Well, if that's the case, I'm sure you're already acquainted with scusi, ho una domanda, or posso fare una domanda? So can I ask a question? Let me give you something more interesting so you can show off. Professore, vorrei essere sicuro di avere capito bene. Potrebbe ripetere? Okay, now you're at the hotel, and probably the one sentence that is very easy to use is, as you enter, you approach, you can say, buongiorno, ho una prenotazione a nome di, and then say the name. This is very basic. But something you may not have rehearsed is that you get your room, you go into your room, and you don't really like it. It's smaller than what it looked like when you were checking out the pictures, or maybe, you know, you're there with your significant other and they don't like it. So how can you ask the person at the reception to upgrade? Well, definitely the first thing I want to suggest, before even we start talking about languages, is just be polite. If you ask with kindness, in a very polite way, receptionist will usually help you out. Instead, if you go there demanding stuff or being upset, it just doesn't work. Don't do that. Advice for any language in any country, really. But here is how I would ask that. Scusi, un'informazione. La stanza mi piace, però la trovo un po' piccola. Me la aspettavo un po' più grande. Abbiamo modo di cambiarla? Magari per una stanza più spaziosa. Ovviamente pago la differenza. You ask it that way, 100% is gonna upgrade you. Maybe even give you a little discount. Speaking from experience. Now that we've got all of that sorted, you're going to the supermarket, you want to buy something, and I think you already know the basic sentence or question you could ask when you say posso usare la carta or posso pagare con la carta, so can I pay with credit card? Okay, we already know that. Let's see something more useful. You are getting ready to pay and you notice, goodness gracious, you forgot your wallet at the hotel, back home. How do you say that? I mean, she's waiting for you to pay, she's already scanned all of your stuff, there are people in the line queuing. Here's what you say. Accidenti, ho lasciato il portafoglio a casa. Mi può mettere la spesa di lato e torno subito? Mettere di lato is an interesting expression to say just put it to the side, and if you say it that way, there is going to be no problem, and the only thing you may want to add is grazie mille, scusi. Okay, now for those of you who either go and visit friends, so you are at someone's home, or perhaps you're actually doing a homestay with an Italian family. I think a good way to sound polite and leave a good impression to your host family is to often ask permission to do things even though they are rather basic, simply because, of course, you're not a guest, oftentimes you're paying for it, but it kind of makes you sound more kind, nice to interact with, and at the end of the day, you'll have an overall better experience. Now, we all know the classic sentence, posso usare il bagno? Can I use the bathroom? And depending on the family, you won't need to ask permission every single time. But one thing you might not know is that oftentimes, depending on the house, but in many Italian houses, you have to physically turn on the boiler in order for you to have hot water for your shower. So, a good thing to do, and it's also good practice, is to ask about the boiler. So you go to whoever it is, the owner, the dad, the mum, the sister, whoever it is, and you say, volevo fare la doccia, lo scaldabagno è acceso? So you're asking if the boiler is already on. I know this may sound strange to some people, but it's just how things are. If they say sì, then super easy, just say, ok, perfetto, a dopo, and you go have your shower. If they say no, then you can say, allora lo accendo un po'. Alright, now that you're nice and showered, and it's getting a little hot, and you're like, hey, you know what, I want to go get some nice, proper gelato. So you go to the gelateria, and you see all of these incredible flavors, because there is a lot of variety in Italy. You're having some trouble making up your mind, you know, they all look great, and you don't know which one, and you'd like to try. How do you ask that? Sono un po' indeciso. Sono un po' indeciso, mi fa assaggiare il cioccolato fondente? Così vedo se mi piace. Alright, let's examine this. So, you're a little undecided. I think, is that a word in English? I don't know. Best teacher ever. You're asking them to let you try assaggiare. You can also use provare, mi fa provare il cioccolato fondente. Of course, swap cioccolato fondente with whatever flavor you want to try. And then at the end you can say, così vedo se mi piace. That's a very natural way to say it, so I can see if I like it. They'll definitely let you do it, and they might even let you try a couple of flavors before you have to make your mind. Okay, noble ones, well, I hope that you enjoyed this video, you found it useful. If you have questions, feel free to ask me in the comments. Let me know if you are studying Italian or if you are considering picking it up as a language for your personal study. And as always, thank you so much for joining Metatron's Academy.